Hi, everybody. My name is Willie Turney, and I'm on the Google Cloud community team. Really excited for today's sessions where we'll be talking about how to leverage AI in Google SecOps. It's a hot topic, so we got a lot of information for you today. Before we get started, please remember to use the chat on the right-hand side of the screen where you can ask questions. We have time at the end to get those answered. Without further ado, I will pass it over to Greg.
Well, thank you very much, Willie. Hello. So my name is Greg Kushmerek. I'm a cloud security architect here at Google Cloud Security, and I'm here to talk to you a bit about how to leverage AI in Google SecOps. I've got a few slides. Promise you I'm going to go for a demo as well. Definitely do appreciate any questions that come up along the way as well. So when we talk, first of all, about the SecOps platform, we have to remember that it has some core attributes in terms of what makes the platform what it is. And one of them is this hyperscale cloud infrastructure. I like to point out to customers that the original Google Chronicle that the SIM portion is built on it's an exabyte-based platform. So this is an immense compute capability. It has all the resources we need to be able to handle the data that you can send at it. This has been the case since the original Chronicle portion of it was created, and we've had customers adopt the platform and shown that it has the ability to handle immense volumes of data. Then there's this concept of having applied threat intelligence. Just creating a data lake isn't enough. It's not just about ingesting data. It's not just about performing searches on data. There's a lot we can say about search on data for sure, but if you're familiar with the DIKW pyramid, right? Data, information, knowledge, wisdom. It's not just about searching data, right? Finding some information that is good, but the knowledge about what's happening inside your environment, that's really where you start to have differentiators. And applied threat intelligence is really more closer to that K in here, because what you're saying is that not only am I finding an intersection with something that's known to be bad, but with applied threat intelligence, we can say, well, what are the tactics, techniques? What do we know about the threat actor? Is it an active campaign? How many of the IOCs do we see present in your environment? It gives you an awful lot more structure behind the context of what you're saying, which is where true knowledge comes from. So that is another core attribute of the Google SecOps platform. And then there's this AI component. Gemini and SecOps. This is a rather recent introduction. The idea about having this unified AI and intelligence-driven platform for threat detection, investigation, and response, meaning that along the way of the user workflow, you have AI there to assist you in being able to find the things you need to get your job done in a reasonable amount of time. When we speak specifically about AI, the part that a lot of people are focused on is generative AI. And because there's generative AI and then there's machine learning. Machine learning is another discussion. There's definitely a lot on tap coming with the Chronicle component using machine learning. But the generative AI component is a combination of our Gemini agent, which I'm sure a number of you have seen inside Google. I mean, Gemini is a cool corporate LLM. But then on top of that, we have something called SecLM, right? So this is something that we've introduced to minimize the potential for hallucination. You can never say that things will be zero, but the idea is that if you ask a question related to a security context, or if you receive an answer from any question you've asked, it will be grounded in a security context. So how does this work out? Well, when you look at our security platforms that we have across our different enterprise tools, there is, for example, the ability to secure your AI workloads. There's Vertex AI. This is for the BigQuery people out there. You can absolutely bring your own AI models as well. You could use Vertex provided models, and that's good for sort of generic use cases. If you wanted to try to build your own, that's fine as well. That's, of course, an awful lot of work. You're certainly welcome to it. Then you go the next step up. That's where we have SecLM. This is an API for Gen AI powered security services. The AI component via API is something that we'll be delivering to customers as well in the future. I can't say much about the roadmap here, but I do know that there's absolutely API-enabled calls into SecLM. But what's going on with this is that you have something that's been trained and tuned with the best-in-class threat intelligence and security data, so that You can ask something about an IOC and it understands an IOC as an indicator of compromise. You can ask something about a specific tactic and technique, you'll get an answer about it. And what this means is that you have this Gemini and security operations, which allows you through your workflow to intersect with SecLM to get answers that provide you the provide you the context you need to be able to do things faster. And in the end, really what AI is about, when you boil it all down, at least in today's environment, it's about getting your job done faster, better and faster. Where we intersect in the SecOps platform is these three key areas of the workflow. You are able to summarize what you have coming in. And if you've used any SecOps platform, regardless of the SIM, one of the problems that you have, of course, is the volume of data that comes in. And the Google SecOps platform is certainly not immune to this. I mean, if you take out the SecLM part, if you take out Gemini, what you're going to find yourself having to deal with still is, I have an onslaught of alerts. What do I do about this? So that's a bigger topic. We have risk-based profiles inside of Google SecOps. We have case capabilities, so that you're able to focus in on what is important. But then when you're focused on something that's important, you want to be able to get an answer faster about what it means, right? What is the context behind it? What's the best next step? All right, so that's where we're using AI in one context. Another one, of course, is in performing an investigation. This really is where you can see an awful lot of performance improvements when you're running a SecOps platform inside a SOC. One of the problems that people have if you run a SOC is, hey, I got to hire people. I got to retain people. And then the retaining can be an issue as well. It's like, all right, for a SOC, I hire a low-level analyst. Maybe this is somebody, he or she's just out of college for the first time, right? Or this flow of people who come out of the military decide to go into a security career. Great path. What do you do, right? It's like you take that first job, doesn't pay as much as you expect you're going to make later on, let's just say. And so what do you do then? It's like you get your search, you get your experience, you move on. If you get trained up on a platform, you can use that as a way to get your resume in another company and get an automatic promotion by just jumping a level somewhere else. That's a continuous problem if you invest in people and then they leave. So how long does it take for them to become useful? And then how much longer do you get to leverage that skill set before they decide to move on? Well, one of the advantages of having AI, I mean, it's not necessarily going to solve the problem about how soon people leave. There's other issues that go into retention, but they can be productive a lot faster. They can be useful a lot faster because with an investigation workflow, for example, with the analyst, you have the ability to get reasonable, useful answers in a much shorter period of time. And then the final area where we are using Gemini in security operations comes in actions. So this comes up with a case investigation. You can leverage AI to generate detections, build playbooks, and then remediate threats. And I'll show you a little bit more about this as we come along. Just a quick quote as well. I like to remind people of this. We're very clear, we at Google are very clear about the fact that we don't use customer data in our models. And it gets difficult for some people to wrap their heads around this. It's like, okay, I use Google, I use Gmail, I use chat, I use all these things that are free. You're collecting user data, you use that user data in ads, right? This is all known. And then people think, well, automatically like, well, if I'm buying an application on Google Cloud Platform, if I'm buying Sec operations, like, am I still the product? Like, well, the answer is no, right? It's a different model completely. And especially with AI across all of our products, we do not use customer data, right? This quote here from Warren Berkeley says it: customer data is never used by Google. We do not use customer data to train our models used by others without permission. I am one of many people here at Google who helped ground SecLM. We had an entire process internally where we would come up with prompts, we would come up with rules, we'd come up with search results, and we would say, well, does this make sense? Well, does this answer align with that question, right? If I give you this rule, like, what would be the right way to generate a prompt to get it? If I ask this prompt, what do I expect to get? And this is a long iterative process, which is still ongoing, but that's how we were grounding it, using researchers here at Google, not customer data. And when you have Google SecOps in your environment and it's looking at your data as part of a rule, as part of an investigation, We're not taking those answers and training the model, tuning the model further. It doesn't work like that. So just know your data remains your data. The other part too is that we've seen a lot of customers adopting our product set and having a lot of success with it. And this quote here from Guy Delp, whom I've had the pleasure of meeting, which I won't also really read in full. He's very enthusiastic about what it means to have Gemini and SecOps in terms of raising the ability to be faster, to have as you see more of the natural language queries, so that you're able to not have to be per se a domain expert just when you want to get an answer to something quickly. And that is one of the key things when you think about what does it mean to adopt something like Gemini, something like a natural language capability. It's so that I don't have to think so much about the tool. I can think more about the goal. That is what we really want to have by putting something like Gemini in terms of SecOps. To that, I'm gonna dump out of the product presentation here and go into a bit of a demo. There are 3 areas where we are using generative AI in the Google SecOps platform today. And what we're looking at right now is that this is a test environment, a demo environment. We have a variety of different, let's just say a variety of different data sources sending data in. We're creating telemetry. And this is an example of landing inside the platform, looking at the SOAR-driven component. This is a case management system. You can see that there's different cases that have been created here. And I'm specifically on this one case with applied threat intelligence. So applied threat intelligence is just this idea that it's a broader mindset. One of the ways applied threat intelligence gets applied is that you have indicators of compromise coming in from threat intelligence, and it can be yours, it can be VirusTotal, it can be Mandiant. And as we see in your logs an indicator of compromise that matches one of these threat sources, we're able to automatically let you know, like, we discovered something. You don't have to write a rule around it. You can write rules. You can write rules looking for specific types of context, but we'll just say, hey, I found a match. And there are matches in here, and you see that there's Google Safe Browsing, Applied Threat Intelligence. And what I really wanted to point out is that there are, in this case, 11 different alerts that have fired. So the case has taken 11 different alerts and it's grouped them, and we have grouping technology, and that works its own different way, and we group by different attributes. But then the question is, well, now what do I do? Now, you can look at the alerts and you can figure it out. And as you look at any one of these cases, there will be, different enrichments that are here. And this is good. And this has been in the product since before Google acquired it. This came over with the simplified technology. But what's been added in the SecOps platform is this idea about having a summary case overview. So when I go back to the landing page for the case, you see there's this AI investigation. And okay, this case may require a high level of attention. It tells you about the files that have been found, suspicious hashes that have been found. Then there's the what actually happened, 11 alerts, 66 events, 50 entities, a nice little breakdown here. And then as well, the next steps you should take, the recommended next steps, monitor this, monitor that, right? And these are all links, and anything that's linked is its own type of search. And I don't want to play squirrel here and start like chasing any of these down. But this is the first thing that we have put in the platform to use the power of generative AI to make handling cases easier for you. Because the case itself, right? If we look at the case, we come down a little bit further, we have pending actions. These are all related to different playbooks. You can say like, well, if there's a playbook, then I should know what my next action is. And we can view playbook, or we can click the response. But the question is, what is the right response? So I can have a few different playbooks, but one of the actions could be notify somebody else. One of the actions could be automatically remediate. Automatic remediation can be a big thing. Do you want to destroy a workload? Do you want to destroy a workload, on Black Friday, right? I actually know of a case where customers knew that they were under ransomware attack, and they decided to keep they decided to keep some workloads active because the cost of bringing something down, even while other environments were being owned, was too high during that time of year. Not a current customer of mine. But the point I'm trying to make here is that humans have to make a decision like that. We don't want to just do auto remediation. So this provides you with a context to get there faster. Now, along those lines, we have this one idea about using AI in terms of giving you this quick summary about what to do. The next question, of course, is like, well, what if I want to start asking different types of questions? It could be related to something that's here. It could be related to something more broad. And, one way into the broader question about search and investigation is you can come into this Gemini chat agent, which is grounded in SecLM, and I can start to ask it questions like, find failed user logins over the last 3 days. And that will actually, if I just click that, that's going to generate a quick search. And what it does here is it tells me, here's the actual UDM. So I do not need to understand UDM just to launch a quick search like this. UDM is our unified data model. When data comes in, it gets parsed, right? Ingested, parsed, normalized, and converted into this schema. This is what allows us to achieve speed at scale. And the more UDM the better you can be at your job, especially as you climb the chain of responsibility. But it shouldn't be a gate to prevent you from being able to do a quick question like, hey, just tell me the failed user logins over the last 3 days. And I can run the search and it'll jump context, but I'm not going to go there quite yet. What I want to point out is that there's other ways you can use the chat agent. So for example, I could say, if we think about threat intelligence, what is UNC 0001, right? And did I put in too many zeros? And I kind of hope I did, because it should know like, well, what you meant to say was. So it's doing a little bit of search. And in this case, it's done two things. Well, it says, I cannot find any information about it and provided context, but there are 12 indicators of compromise associated with these threat actors. So let me try something else. What is APT 43? Typically, I ask, is APT 43 active in my environment? And what it will do is a similar answer to this. I'm actually just trying to get a threat intelligence answer. And this is one of the lovely things about doing a live demo on YouTube, recorded for all time. I don't actually know what I get for a result right now, but I'll explain it. All right, so, okay, good. This is what I hope to see. So APT 43 is a North Korean state sponsored. Okay, so I could have asked, is APT 43 active in my environment? And it would have done this part. It would have said, well, it would have actually answered like, I don't know if it's active in your environment per se, but these are the threat indicators that are known to be affiliated with it. And I've run a search, and over the last 90 days, I found these in your environment. That I expected. But also, I didn't have to go into another platform, right? Like, the Mandiant Advantage platform, which has been migrated to Google Threat Intelligence. I didn't have to go in and do research there. I mean, if you want to jump into another console, you always have those capabilities. But for what I wanted to do, like, I was able to do a quick search on it. I have this idea about what it is, right? I could even say, like, is WannaCry ransomware available in my environment or present in my environment? It will know the hashes associated, it'll find it. So it's done this broad search. But this, again, is a very quick turnaround for, is X active in my environment? What does it mean when I see Y? And we could apply this to techniques and tactics, right? These are all great ways to do search. And if we think about the search itself, right? If I go to sim search, we are today providing something similar here. Like, you see that there's different types of queries you could make, but I mean, I could just as easily ask this here is, what are the top 10, actually, it's probably a bad ask question. Let me try something else. What are the most, I'm thinking in a total vacuum here. So let me just do this instead. Show me the active domains being reached on port 22 in my environment. Literally don't know if this is going to do it for me or not. Network connection, port 22. Okay, and it's saying that it's pretty much going to anywhere that's unknown as blank. So that's an interesting one with the geo artifact. But this allowed me to construct a very quick UDM query without needing to know what UDM is. And there's different ways to get into this and get answers. But as you can see, as I just came up with something on the fly, quite literally, it was very responsive. And I've chosen in this case to try to come up with these things where I don't exactly know what the outcome's going to be, because I actually have a lot of faith based on what I've seen, how this developed, that it's it's pretty good at actually coming up with answers to what I'm trying to ask, I should say. All right, so the other place where this comes in handy as well, right? If I come back to the chat agent, just try a new chat, like you can also use it to construct rules. So if I said something like, show me network connections to Russia or to ASN, well, let's just to Russia. I'll be curious what it does. So it's going to target IP. Oh, well, I was hoping it was giving me this. This is valid. It's like it's giving me an answer, and this could work. I was hoping it was going to say user event equals network connection, right? Okay, but what I wanted to do with here is I was just hoping for something just a little more complicated than this. But what I can do now is I could say, can you build a rule for that? And I don't have to always use this one prompt. Oh, in this case, it's a fail. Show me network or show me DNS lookups to, no, that's going to be a bad one. It's like, how do you know what a dynamic domain is? Show me network connections on port 22. I'm going to try this one more time. All right. So unfortunately, I'm not getting the complexity that I want. Let's just, can you build a rule for that? All right. That's better. And I have a pretty good idea why one failed and the other one didn't. Which, if you reach out to me separately, I'm happy to pontificate about. But this is what I expected to see, is that I've got a rule. I could take this rule, I can open it in the rule editor. And this is actually valid UDM, right? This is, you have to have this kind of a namespace event, which has to be listed as a condition. It's actually a valid UDM field looking for a target port. It's going to save the source IP and the target IP in the outcome area, which is then something that can be leveraged further in other rules or in the display of the results. And of course, I could come in here and I could start to add additional rule conditions. The point is that I got here a lot faster based on starting from a search. All right, so let's see. I think, let me just jump back to the slides because I think I got it all. Let's see if I come over here and come back to this. So we talked about the AI investigation, talked about the investigative assistant a little bit. Oh, yes, the playbook assistant, of course, the last item here. So the playbook assistant is getting into the SOAR components. So if I just come back into, let me just do this here, Google SecOps. All right, so landing on the SecOps page, there's this aggregation of alerts, right? So I said, like, for example, this one had 11 alerts, and that's, by the way, what we were looking at here. So how do alerts get generated? You have rules, and rules fall in one of two categories. You have curated detections, which is just a fancy way of saying Google authored rules, and so we have rule packs. So if I open up these, there's the applied threat intelligence, and there are multiple rules associated with any one of these categories. These are on. Okay, that's one way. These would be monitoring your environment, generate alerts, and there you go. The other way is that you could have your own rules. And if I go look at rules dashboard, these are all different rules that have been manually written, right? This looks like one I wrote. Chrome browser DLP file transfer alert, right? I can actually go and look at the edit the rule. And so, this is all looking at Chrome data, looking for people who have decided to download a file, but the event was blocked and it was a DLP rule violation. Okay, so either case, right, this would generate an alert as well. Alerts show up inside cases. Then you have this concept of playbooks. Playbooks are very powerful. If I come and I look at, right, just one of these guys here, and I open playbooks, like there's this nice long playbook, and I'm not gonna zoom in and terribly and look at every one of these, but you notice that there's decision points, right? There's enrichments that happen. There's multiple decision points. You can have an automation. This can get complicated. As with everything, if it's complicated, what that means is that it can take more time to A, learn it, and B, develop it. This is another area where we've been using generative AI to help speed up the process. So for example, if I come over to response and I go to playbooks, and I say create new playbook, and I just need to create a folder, and I just need to create an environment, or choose an environment, say create. This is the typical screen that you would use to start creating playbooks and triggers, actions, flow, blocks, right? But then the other one is that we have this create playbook using AI. And, it's telling you right here that there is a, there's a way to write the prompt. There's a way to leverage the prompt. And it gives you a little example. I have pre-written one just to make a point. I didn't want to have to type all this in. It says create a playbook for phishing emails. The playbook should enrich the email address. So enrichments, okay? Get an enrichment for a specific source, proof point, and mandate. If the email has an attachment, the administrator can choose to detonate the attachment in a sandbox. A decision point lets administrators choose between blacklisting the sender or closing the case. All right, natural language. Kind of sounds like a flow. Somebody else can critique me as to whether this is a good playbook, but in any case, I say generate playbook, and it's thinking about it. And it takes about a moment as it sort of deconstructs what it means, thinks about how to apply it, right? It'll just map this out. And I think research shows that anything on the web that takes more than 5 seconds is considered long. So this might seem long as we wait for this bar to advance, but trust me, right now, if we decided to go read up on all the documentation and all these triggers, actions, flows, and blocks and look at various demos and everything else, it would be a lot longer. And here we go, create with AI, create a playbook. We have triggers and actions, and it's giving me a little overview, and I can create, actually, I can also review it. Right? Is this look what I want? Right? And we do review these votes. When you see these little, was this helpful, up or down? We are very closely paying attention to this. Anyways, I say create playbook, and it creates this structure. At this point, I would have to come in and fill it out, right? If there's API calls, I'd probably have to provide the specific API call that needs to be called. But this is a framework that I can work with and go in and start to, like this one's exchange block, right? Action will get a parameter or list of message IDs. We'll be able to mark it as junk, marking it as junk, right? The whole point is to make your workflow faster, right? So that you can be more productive, get to the answers faster, because this stuff, when you're in a SecOps environment, this stuff just never stops coming in, right? So every minute it takes you to be developing something like this, right? That's more time where somebody else is having to go through yet another onslaught of messages and alerts coming in. All right, that was the last of the items that I was going to show in terms of demo. If we just come back to the content here, I just wanted to leave you with some areas where you can do some additional research. So if you're interested in diving deeper, you can visit our SecOps. There's a little link down there, Security SecOps, for the business value of Google security operations. There's also the Mandiant M-Trends 2024 special report. You can get that on cloud.google.com/security. And there is, I think everybody here already knows about the Google Cloud Security site, so that's probably redundant to mention, but yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Greg. Yeah, as Greg mentioned, let's continue the conversation in the Google Cloud community. You can find the links on the screen here. And then we have some upcoming events across the globe. We have 3 different user meetup sessions. So one in Melbourne on the 19th, one in Sydney on the 26th, and then a Boston session on the 27th. And then we also have a webinar on July 3rd around cyber threats facing the 2024 Olympics. And like I said, if we didn't get to your questions today, which we'll start now, we could continue the conversation in the Google Cloud community, but there were some that came in throughout the session. So Greg, we're good to go to start answering those ones?
Yeah, do what I can. I'm not going to claim I'm going to know everything.
Yes. All right. So first step is pop it on the screen.
You mentioned actions here on this slide. Will I be able to invoke custom SOAR playbooks also through the natural language interface? Not today. So the whole idea today with generative AI is just to create that initial playbook. But again, this is version 1. We iterate through these things. There's a similar place. Like, for example, today I cannot, an area I know a little bit more about, I cannot generate or I cannot use generative AI to iterate through an existing rule, right? If I have an existing rule in place, or if I create a search manually, and I spent a lot of time creating the search manually, I can't say generate a rule for that, not today. But I know specifically generating a rule for a search that you've invested a lot of time in is something that is absolutely on our roadmap. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the kind of thing we'd have to get back to you on, but I would be shocked if we weren't going to allow you to do exactly what you're asking here, because we are trying to use this. First, it's like, let's just get it to work with something new. Then let's figure out what the context is for things that exist, and figure out how to make people even more productive. That's where we're going with all of these.
Good stuff. Next up is from Todd. Let me flash that one on the screen.
Okay, is that an HTML widget we ever get to scrape? I'm assuming that scrape that into an email action as playbooks. I honestly don't know. Playbooks, I didn't come over with Simplify, so this is one of those where I play an expert on TV. We would have to get back to you on that one. I'm just trying to think if this has come up, and I don't want to actually give you a promise here, but I do think that this is the kind of thing that we can absolutely, if you ask that in the security community page, we absolutely will have an expert there look at that and give you a better answer than I can provide you right now.
Awesome. And I'll put the link in the chat once
Thanks.
more.
We do have HTML widgets, that I know, but the degree that you can use, I mean, I will say this, much. Playbooks in and of themselves, in the end, are Python driven, and there is an IDE capability. So whether or not the widget is itself going to give you the ability to create a scraping capability, you could code it, right? The beauty of knowing that there's an IDE under there is like, well, if you want to put the L time and the elbow grease in, right, you could figure out a way to code it. I'll say that.
Nice. So the next one, this one's more of a comment, so I don't know if we can actually answer it, but it was this in relation when you were doing the demo around
real threat, say
Black Friday.
Well, that's a really good example. Yeah, Black Friday. So let's think about what this means, right? So if you're dealing with something like SolarWinds, and in that context, I'm going to assume, like, as SolarWinds is unfolding, what does it mean to see SolarWinds inside your environment, right? SolarWinds was a supply chain attack, and as such, there were, like, people had integrated badness into something that was considered good and trusted. So then there's two things that you need to be able to look for, because when SolarWinds came out, right, people suddenly knew something was bad. So there's detection before and there's detection after. Detection before is very tough. What are you looking for? How do you find it's an unknown unknown? What am I looking for? How do I know something's in my environment? We have an entire area that addresses that inside the product. It doesn't use generative AI. It uses a lot of statistics. So we have pre-calculated variables. So for example, do I have a machine across all of my domain controllers? Right, I have one customer, 22,000 domain controllers. Do I have one domain controller or any number of domain controllers that's talking to a dynamically generated domain that is under 30 days old and has a prevalence factor of under 4, meaning that no more than 4 machines across your entire organization are actually talking to that same domain? That's a very specific question. It is a big data question. Big data is not like it's not in style anymore to use that term, but hey, I live in the East Coast, not the West Coast, so I can still use it. And the fact of the matter is that it's not generative AI doing it, but it is the kind of thing you could do with our product. Now, where does the generative AI fit in with unwinding something like SolarWinds going on in your environment? Okay, is SolarWinds active in my environment? A question you could ask, assuming it's already been identified, it's known to be SolarWinds. As you saw from the earlier example, actually, let me just pull this back up, right? I had here, okay, I have to go back here. And I asked a question in the chat. Is it still here? No. Well, I'll ask it. I won't wait for it, but is APT 43 active in my environment? So if you remember when I did something like this, it knows what APT 43, and it knows what the IOCs are affiliated with APT 43. So if you're unfolding, if an attack is unfolding in your environment, do we know what its IOCs are? How good is your threat intelligence? Now, one of the things that comes with SecOps enterprise at the Enterprise Plus level is Mandiant Breach Analytics. Mandiant Breach Analytics is where, an environment is under attack. Somebody calls up Mandiant to come in and help them unfold like what happened and clean up, right? What do? They come in and they pull out their tools and they say, we're seeing a whole bunch of IOCs that have never been seen before, right? Here's a hash that was clearly involved in attack. Here's a domain that's being talked to. Here's an IP address that's being beaconed to. All of these things are now exposed because, the attack was launched and we're trying to figure it out. Mandiant tracks that information and it makes it available. If I come back into the alerts and IOCs, if you're an Enterprise Plus customer under IOC matches, there will be a section here called, I think it even shows up under sources. Mandiant breach analytics would be in here if we actually had a match. And if I change this to like 30 days, I think I'll even see, but you see Mandiant breach analytics. My point is that in your environment, if you're an Enterprise Plus customer, there'd be an automatic search against the IOCs that we're identifying in those engagements that are like for attacks that are underway right now, right? There's a gap, right, from when it's seen in somebody's environment. It comes in here. We don't identify the customer. That would violate our contact policy problems. But those IOCs are now present and being searched against. And if you said, is SolarWinds active environment in my environment? We've tagged that as part of SolarWinds. Yes, I don't even have to come in here. That answer would show up inside here. So that is a very long-winded way of trying to explain like how this could actually, yes, be used to identify SolarWinds with all kinds of context. Hopefully that helps.
Nice. Thanks for answering that one. And then another one from Shri. And this was also around the time of when you were doing the demo.
Is this an ability to construct natural language queries to look for what you want, assuming you know what you want, or is this actually connecting some dots by itself?
If we need more context, Shri, if you want to.
Yeah, Shri, if you could have a little more context, happy to answer. If I can just absolutely.
Yep. And while we wait for Shri, if she is going to answer,
sure.
Hop to the next one.
How good is the creation? Probably a rule, I'm guessing, right? How good is the creation for something like M365 Defender is 100 days? Oh, for okay. I'm guessing this is more a playbook question. I'm hoping that when I did the demo of playbooks that we kind of answered that. I mean, part of it depends on the prompt, right? When you create your playbook and you put in your prompt, I hate to think of prompt engineering as a skill you should learn, right? To me, it's like, eventually this thing should be able to derive a lot of context based on what you provide. But prompt engineering is definitely something you have to keep in mind. You have to give it more context. Just like I can't go home and talk to my family and just expect them to read my minds without everybody getting angry. It's like I can't expect the playbook to actually be useful unless I give it more context. So I did try to say, like, I want to find things like enrichments. I wanted to have decision points. I want actions to be taken. If it didn't actually map out the other action I had in my head, I can't get disappointed at it. If your question more along the line is, well, we know that M365 Defender requires very specific steps to be successful. I don't think you're going to find that this is going to give you the 187 steps to get through MS365 Defender. But how many of them are there? Are they in broad steps? Is it going to get you there a lot faster? I think you'll find that it'll be faster having the entire playbook with its framework in place than doing it by default. But come back in 5 years and see. Do we even have jobs, right? But come back in 5 years and see how well it does. Then I think we'll find you'll be a lot closer towards being able to getting a lot of this done. Somebody will probably have invested in a framework at some point, some kind of an API-driven framework that allows you to identify points. That's the way these things go.
Great. So I think that's all the questions we had.
Shri didn't come up with a follow-up?
No, nothing from Shri.
Oh, that's too bad. What was the original question again? Maybe we can take a crack at that.
Let's see.
Ability to construct natural language queries to look for what you want. So let me take a slightly different approach towards answering this. Is this an ability to construct natural language queries to look for what you want? Yes, that is absolutely part of this. Like when I set up here, is APT 43 active in my environment? Like that is.
Here's some more context.
Perfect. There are two-way solutions. You don't know what to look for. Now it tells you what to focus on. AI telling you automatically what to focus on is actually on our roadmap for later on this year. Well, it's on our roadmap. I shouldn't say later on this year because I don't have the roadmap in front of me and I don't want to make it sound like I'm making a promise, but it is something we're actively looking at. So we want to give you the ability to use machine learning to focus on and machine learning and generative AI to help guide you towards, you might want to consider looking for these types of things. Like, we're noticing aberrations statistically. We're seeing things gravitate towards certain areas. Like, if you think about machine learning effectively being, regressing to the mean, but the mean could be over tens of thousands of vectors. Like, well, we're seeing something weird over here. You might actually want to look for something along these lines. We are absolutely working towards that kind of a delivery. So that's definitely one. If you do know what you're looking for, yes, like if I know that I want to find, show me, like I could have say, show me all hash IOCs over the last 30 days. This is another thing about, I know kind of what I'm looking for, help me get there. And the thing is that this is being another one of those moments. I know the way I do it. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, that's actually very interesting. It says edit and search page, so I can open it up. Metadata event type is file creation. You could argue that, well, like, so this made an assumption. These are files that would have been created, say part of a download. It also could have been hashes that have been executed, and maybe I want to add the event type to be or file run kind of operation. But like, it's using SHA-1. Now it has given me these actual literal hashes, and I think that's more because there was a chat history because I didn't say new chat. But I know that if I was in this section and I was starting from fresh and I asked the same question, it would probably just say hash equals and then just set the date range to 30 days. But all that aside, yes, this is supposed to not have you be an expert necessarily on the UDM per se, so that you can find those results a lot faster. So hopefully, Shri, I've given you a little bit more of an intelligent answer.
Thanks, Greg. And we have one more question from
Sure
Paul.
thing. So, well, it kind of has been added to SOAR. I guess not, right? It's like it's not the chat agent. So when will it be added to SOAR specifically? Like, what are my cases? I don't actually know. So will detections be added as well? So we are trying to make it so that the chat agent is your pivot point throughout all of it. As a matter of fact, I can tell you right now that this whole concept of being inside the search and having this up here, this is supposed to go away, and you would do it exclusively through here. This, I've been told anyway, is the case. Enough customers say they don't want that to happen. That won't happen. That's a different story. But I could say, theoretically, I've never tried this, but I should, just discard my role. Yes, discard edits. I'm just going to try it live.
Right.
Come on, come back. Show me cases with applied threat intelligence. I don't actually expect it to work, but I'm curious what it's going to do. For now, Gemini can't help you with that. Okay, so I don't know when and where. I was kind of hoping maybe because this environment has some preview features enabled. So we do want to get you there. That I know. The idea is that you should be able to use the chat agent to help guide you through the product. And that is a big picture issue because you can create filters up here. If you can create filters up here to start to screen out data, maybe I want to find something that goes across all cases, for example. Show me entities in, like, so imagine like you see this applied threat intelligence. Imagine that a lot of these were the same ransomware attack, but not all of them were. So show me cases affiliated with an ongoing ransomware attack, and suddenly like the caseload just shrinks. So that's the kind of direction I know we're heading in. So I don't know when, but it is where we want to go.
Great. Final call for questions, and I will put the link to the Google Cloud community one more time. Feel free to ask questions there or test your expertise and help other folks get their questions answered. But if we don't have any other questions for the day, we're good to go. Thank you, Greg, for a great session, and please continue the conversation in the community, and we'll see you all soon.
Great. Thank you everyone for joining.
See ya.
Bye now.